One alien race dared to challenge the humans and paid the price. Humanity had always looked at the sky with wonder, but now, centuries after venturing beyond Earth, the stars were not just a dream, they were home. Ships moved between planets, colonies thrived, and trade networks connected human civilization across multiple star systems. Yet peace in the galaxy was always fragile. Humanity was still young compared to many alien civilizations, but what humans lacked in history, they made up for with creativity, adaptability, and an unyielding spirit. And now, far beyond the Sol system, a shadow approached, a force that would test that spirit in ways no human could have imagined. The Zalvorians were known in the galaxy for their pride. Their empire spanned dozens of star systems, and they had never faced defeat. Their ships were sleek, weapons powerful, and their tactics meticulously planned. Yet, arrogance often blinds the strongest. When Zalvorians learned of humanity's expansion into nearby systems, they laughed at the idea that humans could challenge them. The Council of Zalvorian admirals issued a single command: make them understand their place. And so, the fleet set course for human space. The first signs it began quietly. Outposts on the edge of known space reported unusual readings, distortions in space-time, unusual energy signatures, and signals that defied known patterns. Human scientists initially thought these anomalies were natural phenomena, solar flares, asteroid activity, or experimental energy tests gone awry. But soon, the truth became undeniable. Scout ships reported them first. Massive, sleek metallic shapes that moved with silent precision. Their hulls shimmered with energy, reflecting light in a way that no human technology had yet achieved. Humans watched in awe and fear as the alien fleet approached the edge of the Orion sector. Admiral Helena Vargas of the United Earth Space Command stared at the readings on her console. Her ship, the Stalwart, was one of the fastest in the fleet, and yet the Zalvorian scouts moved faster, almost as if space itself bent to their will. "They're coming in force," she said, her voice steady but tinged with concern, "and they're not stopping for warnings." Her crew, seasoned and disciplined, exchanged glances. Humans were brave, but no one had faced a species like this before. The Zalvorians were not explorers, they were conquerors. The Zalvorian message then came: the transmission. A deep, resonant voice, amplified and distorted by alien technology, echoed across all channels. "Humans, you are insignificant. You have expanded beyond your rightful limits. Leave these systems or face the consequences." The message was broadcast in dozens of languages simultaneously, each translated instantly by the human ship's AI systems. The meaning was clear. The Zalvorians did not negotiate. They demanded submission, but humanity did not yield. Vargas leaned forward, her fingers resting on the table as she addressed her officers. "We don't retreat, we don't surrender. Prepare all ships for defense and contact the colonies. They need to know we're ready to protect them." Humanity's response, despite their fear, humanity's response was swift. Word spread quickly through the colonies, from mining stations on icy moons to sprawling cities on terraformed planets. Civilians volunteered to support the fleets. Engineers worked tirelessly to upgrade ships, and scientists searched for any advantage against the unknown technology of the Zalvorians. The Zalvorians, confident in their superiority, believed they would crush humanity without resistance. But they underestimated a fundamental human trait: adaptability. While the aliens relied on precision and overwhelming power, humans thought differently. They used creativity, strategy, and unpredictability. Small colonies created decoy fleets, disguising old ships as advanced war vessels. Asteroid fields became traps, and energy storms were manipulated to disorient the enemy. Every human outpost became a potential battlefield, every ship a tool of surprise. The first encounter, the first real confrontation, occurred near the asteroid belt surrounding the planet Kepler 76b. Human scouts reported Zalvorian ships entering the sector. 3 massive alien cruisers, each bristling with weapons and shields, glided silently among the rocks. Human pilot Lieutenant Raj Malik gripped the controls of his ship, the Hawkwing, as he led a squadron of fighters toward the fleet. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and if anyone had dared to think about it, outmatched. But humans had a plan. "Stick to the shadows," Malik instructed. "Use the belt for cover, wait for my signal." The Zalvorians didn't notice the human ships at first. They moved arrogantly, confident in their sensors and shields. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, Malik's squadron darted from the cover of asteroids, firing precise energy pulses that targeted critical systems on the alien cruisers. The Zalvorians retaliated immediately, their weapons cutting through space with deadly accuracy. But humans were nimble. Fighters weaved between rocks and debris, using agility instead of brute force to survive. The battle was intense but brief. Humans didn't aim for total destruction, they aimed for disruption. One cruiser, disabled temporarily by targeted strikes, drifted uselessly as the human squadron retreated. The lesson learned after the skirmish, the Zalvorians were stunned. Humanity had not fought with overwhelming power, but with intelligence, courage, and teamwork. The aliens realized something crucial: humans were unpredictable. They did not follow conventional tactics. They adapted. They learned quickly. On board the flagship Imperator Vrax, Zalvorian Admiral Tilin snarled. "They are clever, far too clever for a species so young. Increase our assault. We cannot allow them to resist. Show them the might of the Zalvorian Empire." But inside the human fleet, Admiral Vargas smiled quietly. She had expected the attack, and she knew this was only the beginning. Humanity would not be intimidated. Every colony, every ship, every human heart burned with the same determination. They would defend their home, no matter the cost. The human spirit in the weeks that followed, the Zalvorians tested humanity repeatedly. Patrols harassed mining colonies, scouting ships monitored supply lines, and massive cruisers blocked strategic points. But every time, humans responded with ingenuity. Colonists rigged energy storms to confuse alien sensors. Engineers converted cargo ships into makeshift war vessels, and scientists developed new defenses using captured Zalvorian technology. Through every challenge, one truth became clear: humans were not just survivors, they were fighters, and their fight was not only for survival. It was for pride, for freedom, and for the unshakable belief that no one, not even the most powerful alien empire, could dictate humanity's destiny. A growing legend word of the human resistance began to spread beyond their own fleets. Some Zalvorian soldiers started whispering about the cunning and courage of the humans they encountered. For the first time, cracks appeared in the facade of the Empire's invincibility. Back in the human command centers, children on distant colonies listened to tales of daring pilots, engineers who turned junk into weapons, and civilians who refused to surrender. Humanity was becoming legendary, not because of power, but because of heart. And above it all, the stars shone silently, watching a species that refused to bow to fear. The galaxy had been warned. Humans were not to be underestimated. The Zalvorians had arrived to challenge humanity. And they would soon learn that underestimating humans came at a high price. The human colonies were alive with preparation. Even as the Zalvorians patrolled the outer systems, humans did not cower. Every settlement, from the sprawling cities of terraformed planets to the icy mining stations in asteroid belts, became part of a vast, interconnected defense network. Admiral Helena Vargas walked the corridors of the stalwart, her mind a whirl of strategies, contingencies, and possibilities. Humanity's strength was not just in their ships or weapons, it was in their minds. And the Zalvorians had not yet realized the full measure of human ingenuity. "They think we will break," she said quietly to Lieutenant Malik, who was checking over the fighter squadrons. "They think we are weak. They are wrong." Malik nodded. "We've already proved they are not unstoppable. One cruiser disabled and they had to retreat. Just imagine what we can do when we're fully prepared." Vargas allowed herself a small smile. "That is exactly what I plan to show them." A new approach. The Zalvorians had relied on conventional tactics, overwhelming firepower, disciplined formations, and relentless pressure. They assumed that human fleets, small and less technologically advanced, would crumble under the first major attack. But humans were anything but conventional. Engineers and scientists worked together to develop new technologies and tactics. Ships were modified to be faster, more agile, and capable of operating in ways that Zalvorian sensors could not predict. Drones and automated fighters were deployed for scouting and ambush missions. Even mining vessels, old cargo ships, and civilian craft were converted into versatile weapons and transport units. Colonies became laboratories for innovation. On Titan Station, a group of scientists repurposed electromagnetic fields to create temporary shields around fleets. On Nova 4, engineers developed gravity traps, using planetary forces to slow or divert enemy ships. Humans had discovered one simple truth. If the Zalvorians expected predictable behavior, they were already at a disadvantage. The Zalvorian underestimation back in the Zalvorian flagship Imperator Vrax, Admiral T-Lin scowled at the incoming reports. They are clever, the Zalvorian lieutenant admitted nervously. The humans are adapting. T-Lin slammed a clawed hand against the console. Impossible, they are primitive, they should not be able to resist us. But that was the mistake. The Zalvorians had assumed humans were simple, predictable, and weak. That underestimation would cost them dearly. They use the environment, T-Lin growled. They manipulate asteroids, storms, and even their own damaged ships to create traps. This is unworthy of a primitive species. Unworthy or not, the humans had turned their perceived weaknesses into strengths. Their smaller numbers allowed them to move quickly, adapt faster, and think outside the box. Ambush in the asteroid belt. The next major engagement came in the dense asteroid belt near the planet Urindor 12. The Zalvorians had sent a squadron of cruisers, expecting minimal resistance, aiming to intimidate human miners and trading posts. They were wrong. Lieutenant Malik led a squadron of human fighters through the belt, their ships hidden among massive rocks. Sensors scanned constantly, detecting the enemy before they could react. "Steady," Malik whispered into the comms. "Wait for my mark." The Zalvorian ships moved confidently, their energy shields shimmering as they brushed past asteroids without caution. Then the human squadron struck. Missiles fired from hidden positions, drones swarmed from all directions, and sudden energy bursts disrupted alien sensors. One cruiser collided with a massive asteroid, its shields failing, while another was forced into evasive maneuvers, breaking formation. It was not a decisive destruction, but it was enough to prove a point. Humans were not easy prey. Innovation on the fly. Humans did not rely solely on brute force. The fleet used clever tricks to amplify their effectiveness. Holographic decoys projected false fleets into the path of the Zalvorians. Artificial intelligence coordinated hundreds of small drones to harass and distract larger enemy ships. Even supply ships, typically non-combatants, were rigged to explode in controlled bursts, creating barriers of debris and energy that delayed enemy movements. In one daring maneuver, scientists aboard the Starforge, a research vessel, used a planet's magnetic field to bend energy weapons back toward the attacking Zalvorian ships. Several cruisers were damaged before they could even respond. From the perspective of the Zalvorian forces, humans were unpredictable, disorganized, and dangerous in ways they could not anticipate. And that unpredictability gave humans an edge that no amount of raw power could overcome. The first real loss for the Zalvorians. Admiral T-Lin's frustration grew. One by one, Zalvorian ships began reporting damage, delays, and disarray. The humans' unconventional methods disrupted their formations, slowed their advance, and forced them to split forces to protect supply lines and scouting parties. It was the first significant loss in a long time. Zalvorians prided themselves on never retreating, never yielding, and never being outsmarted. Yet here they were, facing a species they believed inferior. Adaptability is their weapon, T-Lin growled. And they wield it with precision, prepare the fleet for a full assault, crush them before they grow stronger. But even as he gave orders, the humans were already several steps ahead. Human collaboration. While the Zalvorians focused on sheer firepower, humans emphasized collaboration. Colonies shared resources, intelligence, and technology. Pilots, engineers, and scientists worked as a single network, creating strategies that combined multiple layers of defense and offense. On the planet Arcadia, civilians volunteered to maintain communication arrays, ensuring uninterrupted contact across the human systems. On Titan Station, engineers coordinated rapid repairs for damaged ships, turning potential losses into future victories. Every person played a role, proving that humanity's greatest strength was unity. Even young recruits showed courage and cleverness. Teenagers trained in simulation programs often suggested tactics that even veteran commanders had not considered. Humanity's ability to learn quickly and think creatively became a force the Zalvorians could not match. The turning point in strategy, Admiral Vargas realized that conventional engagement was insufficient. The humans could not simply meet the Zalvorians head-on and expect to survive. They needed to exploit every weakness, every assumption the aliens made. She called a meeting of her top officers. They expect us to fight like them, predictably, aggressively, without imagination. We will use our minds, our speed, our ingenuity. We will strike where they least expect it. Plans were drawn for ambushes in asteroid belts, gravitational anomalies, and even inside ion storms. Holographic decoys, drones, and energy traps would confuse the enemy, while human pilots executed swift, unpredictable attacks. Every human ship, no matter how small, became a potential weapon in the larger strategy, a message across the stars. Word of the human resistance spread quickly, reaching other alien races in nearby systems. Traders, explorers, and diplomats whispered of the humans' cleverness, courage, and resilience. For the first time, some Zalvorians began to doubt their campaign. Back in human space, children listened to stories of daring pilots who had outsmarted massive cruisers, engineers who turned ordinary ships into weapons, and ordinary civilians who played vital roles in victories. Humanity was becoming a legend in its own right, not because of brute strength, but because of heart, intelligence, and unwavering determination. The price of arrogance the Zalvorians had assumed that humans were weak, predictable, and incapable of organized resistance. That arrogance had blinded them to the humans' true strength. Now they faced a reality they had never encountered, a species that adapted, learned, and fought back with cleverness, courage, and unity. Even as the Zalvorians regrouped, human scouts continued to probe their formations, identifying weaknesses and predicting movements. Every failed attack by the aliens became another lesson for the humans, a lesson that would make them stronger in the battles to come. Vargas watched the stars from the bridge of the stalwart, a calm determination in her eyes. "They think they can intimidate us," she said softly. "But every move they make only strengthens our resolve. They will learn soon enough that humans cannot be underestimated." A growing confidence by the end of the campaign's first month, human morale soared. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, humanity had proven its ability to survive, adapt, and strike back. Colonists rebuilt damaged stations, pilots executed daring missions, and scientists continued to innovate at a pace the Zalvorians could not match. For the first time, some alien species outside the Zalvorian Empire began to see humans not as a minor species, but as a formidable presence in the galaxy. The warning was clear: humans were not to be dismissed. And in the silent expanse of space, the stars watched over a species that had discovered its strength, not in raw power, but in courage, creativity, and unity. Humanity had turned the tables. The Zalvorians had underestimated them. And that mistake would echo through the galaxy for a long time. The stars were quiet, but tension thrummed through human space like a living pulse. Humanity had survived the first tests of the Zalvorian assault. They had adapted, they had resisted, and now they were preparing for something greater, a counterstrike. Admiral Helena Vargas stood on the bridge of the stalwart, gazing at the holographic projection of the Zalvorian fleet. Hundreds of alien ships moved in precise formation across the display, their energy shields glowing ominously. The humans were smaller in number, and their ships were far less powerful individually. But power alone did not define a battle. Strategy, ingenuity, and courage did. "This is it," Vargas said, her voice steady and calm. "We've learned their weaknesses. Now we hit them where it hurts. Prepare all fleets for coordinated attack. This is not just defense, it is our first real strike." Her officers nodded, each one understanding the gravity of the moment. Every human ship, from massive frigates to small fighters, had a role to play. Every colony, every station, every civilian would contribute in some way. The plan. Humanity's strategy was bold, complex, and risky. The Zalvorians were strong in direct confrontation, relying on superior firepower and shields. Humans could not meet them head-on. Instead, they planned to divide, confuse, and outmaneuver the enemy. First, decoy fleets would appear along multiple routes, drawing portions of the Zalvorian forces away from the main human fleet. Hidden human ships would wait in ambush positions, using asteroid fields, ion storms, and gravitational anomalies to conceal their presence. Second, drones and AI-controlled fighters would harass enemy ships, disrupting their formations and communication networks. Engineers had modified civilian drones to fire energy bursts, jam sensors, and even hack into alien targeting systems. Finally, human fleets would strike in unison, coordinated through real-time communication networks. Every attack would be synchronized, every move calculated, and every ship would contribute to the larger goal, forcing the Zalvorians into chaos. Vargas knew it would not be easy. The margin for error was slim. One mistake, one miscalculation, and the fleet could be destroyed. But humanity had never relied solely on brute strength. They relied on creativity, determination, and adaptability. The ambush begins. The first stage of the plan unfolded near the asteroid belt of Urindor 12. Decoy fleets, composed of older cargo ships disguised with holographic projections, moved boldly through the outer lanes. Their goal was simple: attract attention. It worked. The Zalvorians, confident as ever, focused on these apparent targets. Energy beams flashed through the darkness of space, striking decoy ships that barely resisted. The alien fleet committed to the attack, breaking formation and exposing their flanks. From their hidden positions, human fighters and drones launched their ambush. Swarms of small, agile ships darted through the shadows of massive asteroids, striking at weak points in the Zalvorian cruisers' shields. Energy bursts disrupted communication arrays, leaving enemy formations confused and disorganized. Lieutenant Raj Malik led his squadron with precision. "Focus on the shields," he commanded. "We don't need to destroy them, just make them vulnerable. Remember, every ship counts." Every maneuver matters. The Zalvorians had never faced enemies who used the environment itself as a weapon. Asteroids were no longer obstacles, they were allies. Bursts of magnetic energy from hidden human ships pulled smaller enemy vessels off course, while gravity wells near larger rocks slowed cruisers, making them easy targets for targeted strikes. Innovation in action. While the ambush unfolded, human scientists deployed another layer of strategy. On board the research vessel Starford, a team of engineers had developed a system to bend Zalvorian energy weapons against them. Using focused magnetic fields and reflective energy panels, human ships redirected alien blasts toward their own fleet, causing minor but critical damage. "This is working better than expected," said Dr. Lena Kale, the lead engineer, her fingers flying across the console. "We're turning their weapons into ours." Onboard the stalwart, Admiral Vargas monitored the progress. "Excellent," she said, her eyes narrowing with determination. "Keep them off balance. Do not let them regroup." Every human ship played a role. Frigates created smoke screens of charged particles, making it difficult for the Zalvorians to aim. Fighters weaved through the chaos, striking at shields, engines, and weak hull points. Even civilian craft, converted with energy disruptors and guided by AI, contributed to the battle. Humanity was fighting as one organism, a single, coordinated mind acting against a superior foe. The tide turns by the second hour of engagement. The Zalvorians were in disarray. Their formations were broken, cruisers had collided with asteroids, and communication between ships was intermittent at best. They had never faced an enemy so unpredictable, so relentless, and so coordinated despite smaller numbers. Admiral Teelin's voice echoed through the flagship Imperator Vrax. "Reassemble! Reassemble at once! We cannot allow these humans to divide our forces." But every move he ordered played into human hands. Anticipating the Zalvorians' reaction, the human fleet had already positioned ships to exploit gaps in their formations. Swarms of drones flooded into the space between cruisers, sabotaging shields, engines, and weapons. Human fighters darted through openings, striking quickly before vanishing into asteroid shadows. "This is unbelievable," Malik said, adrenaline pumping as he piloted the Hawkwing. "They're everywhere but nowhere at the same time. We're like ghosts to them." Vargas nodded, watching the data feed. "Humans adapt and they anticipate. That is why they cannot win by strength alone." The human spirit shines even as the battle raged. Human courage and teamwork shone brightest. Pilots who had just left training simulations were now executing maneuvers no alien had ever seen. Engineers aboard damaged ships coordinated repairs mid-battle, keeping vessels operational against overwhelming odds. Civilians, watching from stations and colonies, relayed intelligence, monitored enemy movements, and guided reinforcements into critical positions. It was not just technology that won the day, it was the human spirit. The Zalvorians had expected a simple fight. They had not counted on creativity, determination, and unity. Humanity was proving that brains, courage, and teamwork could overcome raw power. The key strike. The climax of the counterstrike came when human forces targeted the lead Zalvorian's cruiser, the Dreadspire, which coordinated the enemy fleet. Using a combination of decoys, drones, and carefully timed fighter attacks, humans disabled its shields and sabotaged its engines. Malik's squadron delivered the final blow. Guided by AI targeting systems, they fired a concentrated energy pulse into the cruiser's power core. The explosion was contained but devastating, disabling the flagship and cutting off communication with the rest of the fleet. The Zalvorian forces faltered, leaderless and disoriented. Without direction, their formation collapsed. Ships drifted in confusion, collisions occurred, and their offensive momentum ground to a halt. Admiral T'Lin, witnessing the chaos, realized too late that humans were not what he had assumed. They are not weak," he muttered, disbelief etched across his face. Victory, but not without cost. The human counterstrike succeeded, but it was not without sacrifice. Several ships were damaged, and some brave pilots were lost in the ambush. Every victory came at a price, and humanity mourned quietly, honoring those who had given everything to defend their home. Even as they celebrated, Admiral Vargas reminded her crews that the war was far from over. "This is our first real victory," she said, "but the Zalvorians will adapt. We must be ready for anything." The fleet returned to human space, battered but proud. Colonies cheered, and messages of hope and inspiration spread across star systems. Humanity had struck back, proving that courage, intelligence, and unity could challenge even the mightiest empire. A warning to the galaxy. News of the counterstrike traveled faster than any transmission. Traders, explorers, and observers across nearby systems took notice. Humanity had done more than defend itself. They had demonstrated strategic brilliance, adaptability, and courage that no one could ignore. The Zalvorians, once arrogant and confident, now knew the truth. Humans were not to be underestimated. Their tactics were clever, their determination unshakable, and their ability to learn and adapt unmatched. The arrogance that had guided the Zalvorians into human space now became their greatest weakness. Back aboard the Stalwart, Admiral Vargas looked out at the stars. "We have shown them what humans are capable of," she said softly, "and this is only the beginning." In the silence of space, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if acknowledging the rise of a species that refused to bow to fear. Humanity had fought, adapted, and struck back, and the galaxy would never forget. The galaxy held its breath. After humanity's daring counterstrike, the Zalvorians were reeling, their pride wounded, their formations broken. But they were not defeated, far from it. The alien empire had one advantage left: their experience, their firepower, and their unwillingness to accept failure. Admiral Helena Vargas of the Stalwart knew the coming battle would be different. The Zalvorians would strike back with everything they had. She gathered her officers in the central command room, a holographic star map glowing before them. "They will not make the same mistakes twice," Vargas said, her voice calm but firm. "We must anticipate every move, use every trick, and fight smarter than ever before. Our strategy is not just survival. This is our chance to turn the tide of the war." Lieutenant Raj Malik, standing at attention, nodded. "We've seen how they fight, we know their strengths, and we know their arrogance will be their weakness." Vargas allowed herself a small smile. "Exactly, we are not just fighting to defend human space. We are showing the galaxy that humans cannot be intimidated. Not now, not ever." Preparation for the final battle, the location chosen for the decisive engagement, was Epsilon Prime, a planet rich in rare minerals and a hub for interstellar trade. Its orbit provided natural strategic advantages: asteroid fields, strong magnetic storms, and gravitational anomalies that could be exploited by skilled pilots. Every human fleet, from massive cruisers to converted cargo vessels, was deployed. Fighters were stationed in hidden positions within asteroid belts, drones prepared to swarm, and civilian ships reinforced as supply and rescue vessels. Even the colonies contributed. Miners rigged mining equipment to act as energy traps, and scientists set up sensor arrays to predict enemy movement. "This is more than a battle," said Dr. Lena Kale, the lead engineer aboard the Starforge. "It's a demonstration of everything humanity can do when we work together. Every ship, every station, every person matters." Vargas looked out at the stars, her eyes steady. Then let's show them. The Zalvorians strike. The Zalvorians arrived with a fleet larger than anything the humans had ever faced. Hundreds of ships, bristling with weapons and shields, moved in perfect formation. Their flagship, the Imperator Vrax, led the charge, its energy hum echoing across space. "Steady," Admiral Tillin commanded. "We will crush them once and for all, show no mercy." Yet even as the Zalvorians advanced, they underestimated humanity again. The humans did not wait passively for the attack. They were already in position. Asteroid fields concealed hidden fighters, drones hovered in strategic locations, and traps were set throughout the approach routes. Lieutenant Malik led the first wave of human fighters. "Remember," he instructed, "we strike where they least expect. Agility and teamwork are our weapons. Hit hard, then disappear." The Zalvorians moved confidently, expecting an easy victory, but as soon as they entered the asteroid fields, the ambush began. Chaos in the asteroid field. Human drones swarmed the Zalvorian ships, jamming their communications and disabling energy shields in key areas. Fighters darted in and out of cover, striking at engines and weapon systems before vanishing behind massive rocks. The asteroid field became a maze the humans had mastered and the Zalvorians had not. One cruiser, trapped between two asteroids, tried to fire at the hidden human ships but accidentally collided with debris, damaging its hull. Another flagship attempted to regroup but was slowed by gravitational anomalies manipulated by human engineers. "It's working," Malik shouted over the comms. "They can't keep their formation. Keep pressing." The human fleet moved with precision, hitting the enemy in waves. Drones, decoys, and fighters acted as a single, coordinated force. The Zalvorians, expecting straightforward engagement, were caught in a web of tactics they could not unravel. Turning weakness into strength, Admiral Vargas directed the operation from the stalwart. "Focus on their leadership vessels," she commanded. "Without direction, the rest will falter. Every ship targets their command cruisers." Human engineers had also developed a new tool, a temporary energy mirror that could reflect Zalvorian energy weapons back at their source. When the flagship Imperator Vrax fired on a human frigate, the shot bounced back, hitting a secondary cruiser and disabling it. The Zalvorians had never seen anything like it. Their precision and power were neutralized by ingenuity and preparation. Every human ship, no matter how small, contributed to the battle's outcome. Even civilian contributions were vital. Miners detonated energy charges in carefully calculated sequences, creating debris fields that forced alien ships to divert or collide. Scientists on colonies monitored movements and transmitted real-time data, allowing human forces to anticipate and counter every Zalvorian maneuver. Heroism on all fronts. Courage was not limited to trained soldiers. Young pilots, recently trained, executed daring maneuvers with skill and confidence. Engineers in repair bays worked tirelessly to keep ships operational under fire. Civilians manned remote turrets, guided reinforcements, and provided critical intelligence. One young pilot, Tessa Rin, led a squadron of 4 fighters into the heart of the Zalvorian formation. Her squadron drew fire away from a group of cargo vessels converted into weaponized decoys. "We're the shield," she said into her comm. "Hit them hard, then get out." Her courage inspired others. Across the battlefield, humans acted not as isolated individuals, but as a single organism, a coordinated, relentless force that refused to yield. The Zalvorians falter hours into the battle. Cracks appeared in the Zalvorian fleet. The flagship Imperator Vrax suffered repeated hits from reflected energy blasts, and its escort cruisers were damaged or immobilized. Their disciplined formations had been shattered by unpredictability, environment manipulation, and human ingenuity. Admiral Tillin grew frustrated. "Why can't we control them?" he roared. "We are stronger, we have the numbers, yet they defy us." But the humans had anticipated this. Every move, every distraction, every ambush had been calculated. They were not stronger individually, but together they were unstoppable. Vargas issued the final orders. "Push forward, target the command ships. Once they fall, the rest will scatter. Victory is ours." The decisive strike, the climax of the battle, occurred in the shadow of Epsilon Prime. Human fighters and drones swarmed the crippled command cruisers. Energy mirrors reflected enemy weapons, decoys confused targeting systems, and carefully timed explosions created openings for fighter attacks. Lieutenant Malik's squadron struck the final blow against the Imperator Vrax, targeting its power core with a coordinated energy pulse. The flagship exploded in a controlled burst, disabling nearby ships and sending shockwaves through the Zalvorian formation. Without leadership, the remaining alien vessels faltered. Some attempted retreat, while others were disabled or captured. The battle that had seemed impossible for humans was now a decisive victory. Aftermath and reflection, humanity had won, but the cost was not forgotten. Ships were damaged, brave pilots were lost, and colonies had suffered from minor attacks. Yet the victory proved something far greater than military success. It proved that courage, ingenuity, and unity could overcome any challenge. Admiral Vargas stood on the bridge of the Stalwart, looking at the surviving fleet. "We have shown them what humans are capable of," she said softly. "Not just as fighters, but as thinkers, as creators, and as a united people. The galaxy will remember this day." Back on Epsilon Prime, civilians celebrated cautiously, knowing the war was not over, but that humanity had achieved something extraordinary. Children listened to tales of bravery, engineers told stories of clever tactics, and pilots recounted daring maneuvers that turned the tide of battle. A lesson for the galaxy: the Zalvorians had underestimated humans at every turn. They had assumed that strength, discipline, and arrogance would secure victory. Instead, they encountered courage, intelligence, and unity. The lesson was clear: humans were not to be ignored, dismissed, or underestimated. Even as the surviving Zalvorians retreated, whispers of respect and fear spread throughout their empire. Humanity's reputation was no longer confined to human space. Across neighboring systems, other alien races began to take notice, wary of the species that had turned a near-impossible battle into a decisive victory. The human spirit endures in the quiet aftermath. Admiral Vargas reflected on the battle. Humanity had survived, adapted, and prevailed against one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. But the war was not over. The Zalvorians would recover, regroup, and strike again. Yet she had no fear. Humanity had proven its greatest strength: the ability to unite, innovate, and fight with heart. And with that strength, they would face whatever challenges the galaxy sent their way. As the stars glimmered above Epsilon Prime, humans looked to the sky with pride. They had survived the turning point, and the universe would never underestimate them again. The debris of the Zalvorian fleet drifted silently in the void near Epsilon Prime, glittering faintly like broken stars. Humanity had achieved what many had thought impossible. The alien empire, confident and proud, had underestimated humans at every turn and paid a steep price. Admiral Helena Vargas stood on the observation deck of the Stalwart, her eyes scanning the remnants of the battle. Ships scarred from combat floated gently, and distant explosions from energy cores reminded all that the war had cost more than just pride. It had cost lives. Yet there was triumph in the quiet. Humans had survived, they had fought, they had adapted, and they had won. The aftermath in space: the surviving Zalvorians, leaderless and disorganized, retreated toward their territory. Their fleet was broken, their ships damaged, and their morale shattered. The once proud commanders whispered about the humans' cunning, speed, and unyielding courage. "They are not like any species we have faced," admitted one lieutenant to Admiral T-Lin, who remained silent in disbelief. "They fight with their minds, not just their weapons." T-Lin's pride would not allow him to admit defeat outright, but even he could see that humanity had earned respect, if not fear. The Zalvorians' arrogance had been their downfall, and the humans' perseverance had proven their worth. Back on the human side, fleets regrouped. Ships that had been heavily damaged were repaired, pilots recounted their daring missions, and drones returned to base for maintenance. The coordination, the bravery, and the ingenuity of the humans had ensured that every asset contributed to victory, the celebration of unity. Across human colonies, celebrations erupted, not just of victory but of resilience. Families gathered in public squares, children waved holographic flags, and the stories of the battle spread like wildfire. The human spirit had been tested and had emerged stronger than ever. On Epsilon Prime, the mayor of the capital city declared a day of remembrance for the bravery shown during the battle. "These victories belong to everyone," he said. "Not just to our soldiers and pilots, but to engineers, scientists, civilians, and children who contributed to our success. Humanity proved that together, no challenge is impossible." In space, similar celebrations occurred aboard ships and stations. Human crews shared tales of bravery, clever maneuvers, and last-minute heroics that turned the tide. Heroes emerged not from titles or rank, but from action, courage, and ingenuity. Strategic lessons even in victory, Admiral Vargas focused on the lessons of the battle. Humanity had survived not because of superior firepower, but because of strategy, adaptation, and the ability to use every asset creatively. She convened her top commanders aboard the Stalwart to discuss the future. "We cannot rely on luck or goodwill," she said. "The Zalvorians will return and other civilizations will watch how we respond. Our strength lies in unity, intelligence, and adaptability. We must continue to innovate and remain vigilant." Lieutenant Malik nodded. "They underestimated us once. They won't make the same mistake again, but we've learned too they'll face a species that doesn't give up, that thinks, and that fights together." Dr. Lena Kale added, "Technology alone is not enough. Every person contributes." "The courage and creativity of every human amplified the power of our fleet." Vargas smiled. "Exactly. That is humanity's true advantage. Never forget it." A message to the galaxy: humanity's victory did not remain a secret. Communications broadcast across neighboring systems, reaching every nearby race. Traders, explorers, and diplomats listened in awe as news of the battle spread. Humans had faced a dominant alien empire and survived. They had outsmarted, outmaneuvered, and outlasted a foe that expected easy conquest. Allies and neutral civilizations took notice. Some were inspired, others wary. But all recognized the undeniable truth: humanity was no longer a minor species in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with, capable of turning the tide of battle through courage, ingenuity, and unity. Even the Zalvorians, allies, began to reconsider future confrontations. Humanity had proven that underestimating humans carried a high cost. Honoring the Brit. Back on Earth and across the colonies, ceremonies honored those who had fallen. Families grieved for pilots, engineers, and civilians who had given their lives. But they also celebrated the bravery and ingenuity that had led to victory. Admiral Vargas visited memorials personally, standing quietly as names were read aloud. Every sacrifice had meaning. Every act of courage had contributed to humanity's survival, and every story would inspire the next generation. On Epsilon Prime, young children listened to the tales of Lieutenant Malik's daring maneuvers, Tessa Rin's heroic squadron, and countless engineers who had turned ordinary ships into weapons of strategy. Even the smallest actions, repairing a damaged shield, guiding drones, calculating trajectories, were celebrated. Humanity's victory was not just military, it was a story of collective courage and unity. The Zalvorian retreat. The retreating Zalvorians left behind wreckage, communication debris, and a clear message: humanity could not be intimidated. The Empire had learned a hard lesson. Pride alone did not guarantee victory. Arrogance alone could not overcome determination, ingenuity, and courage. Admiral Thielen vowed to rebuild, but he knew deep in his core that the humans had changed the perception of power in the galaxy. They had fought with intelligence, creativity, and relentless courage. They had turned the impossible into reality. And as the Zalvorians disappeared beyond the outer systems, whispers of admiration and caution spread through their ranks. Humans had not just survived, they had proven themselves as equals in strategy, spirit, and willpower. Humanity looks forward. Victory was not the end, it was a beginning. Humanity had defended its home and expanded its influence, but the galaxy was vast, and other challenges awaited. Colonies began rebuilding, fleets strengthened, and scientists focused on improving technology. The lessons of the battle would guide humanity for generations. Admiral Vargas addressed the fleet from the Stalwart's bridge. "We have shown the galaxy that humans are not weak, that we are clever, resilient, and united. But this victory is a reminder that we must always adapt, always work together, and always protect what we have built. Humanity will face whatever comes next, and we will prevail." The crews cheered. In every heart there was pride, courage, and hope. Humans had survived, had fought, and had proven that no force, no matter how powerful, could suppress their spirit. A legacy of courage stories of the battle spread quickly. Across colonies, ships, and stations, humans told tales of bravery and cleverness. They celebrated every act of heroism, every clever strategy, and every sacrifice. The Zalvorians' arrogance had been met with unity, determination, and intelligence. Children who had grown up listening to these stories began to dream not just of space travel, but of heroism, invention, and courage. Scientists, engineers, and pilots emerged inspired, motivated by the knowledge that one species, humanity, had faced a dominant empire and prevailed. Even the stars seemed to witness humanity's rise. In the quiet expanse of space, humans continued to explore, learn, and grow stronger. Their victories were not just about weapons, they were about spirit, ingenuity, and heart. A new era begins. With the Zalvorians retreating and the galaxy taking notice, humanity entered a new era. Allies approached cautiously, curious to learn from humans, while potential adversaries now calculated carefully before acting. Humanity had proven that strength was not only measured in ships or weapons, but in courage, creativity, and unity. Admiral Vargas looked out over the fleet, the stars reflecting in her eyes. "We have faced the impossible," she said softly, "and we have triumphed. Humanity has shown the galaxy that we will not be intimidated, that we will not bow, and that we are a force to be respected. The stars are our home, and we will defend them." And in the silence of space, humanity's story continued. Not just a story of survival, but a story of courage, ingenuity, and the unshakable belief that no challenge, no matter how great, could defeat the human spirit.